Release the Kraken!
What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to the channel. We're still in the bathroom, I'll be honest with you. There's still a bit of an echo, but I'm out of town. That does not mean I cannot review a brand new show coming to Netflix. It's called Blood of Zeus. Thank you to Netflix for sending me these screeners. I was so excited because this comes to us from the creators of Castlevania, one of my favorite shows on Netflix. Does this live up to the hype? We're going to talk about it, and maybe we'll do a spoiler video a little bit later this week. I need you in the comments below, and let's do it. So a commoner living in ancient Greece, Heron discovers his true heritage as a son of Zeus and his purpose to save the world from a demonic army. So a bit of your typical hero's journey story here. We have the character of Heron, and he's unsure of himself. He's going on this grand adventure. He starts out end of the spectrum and ends up on the other. But within that trope, I think there's something so beautiful here. Because we're dealing with this Greek mythology, something that I am a huge fan of. I just did a quote, but there are so many movies and TV shows dealing with Greek mythology that have worked so well in the past. So you see something like Blood of Zeus, it's like, okay, are they going to come in and do something different? Or is it going to be a bit of a retread? And this is not a retread. Listen, I'll be honest with you. The first 5 minutes I'm thinking, well, it's a bit slow. I'm not in love with the pacing. I just want to understand what we're in for. And no joke, as soon as I said that to myself, we get this crazy action scene with not only gods and demigods, but we have demons. The animation is stunning. The visuals are spectacular. It's reminding me of how I felt watching Castlevania, of course, dealing with something completely different within vampires. And that's when I said to myself, Blood of Zeus is epic. It's everything I wanted it to be. This show is so cool. So I started out watching the first few episodes via my screener before I left. Watched the final 2 episodes, 8 episodes in total on this trip that I'm on. No joke, when I tell you I was tuning everything out during those final 2 episodes, I literally locked myself in a room because I was so excited to finish this show and to complete this journey of Heron and the road that he is on within this show, dealing with, of course, things that we've seen before, like I said. But again, he's the illegitimate son of Zeus, and he's tasked with this enormous responsibility and to take on the burden that he has to take on. Similar, let's compare to something like a Hercules. Throwing it back to a classic Disney film, I'm talking the Disney film, y'all. That's kind of the journey that he's on. But he's taking on this huge demonic army, and from that we get incredible action scenes, battles galore, and beautiful animation that I'm going to compare to something like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Visually, that's what it reminds me of. Now, it's a very different story. It doesn't quite have that childlike sense of wonder. Maybe it doesn't have the charm of an Avatar, but when you're this epic, this grand, this gore-filled, and this centering towards adults, absolutely. But it's cool enough you can, take your teenage son and say, listen, I know this is a bit more adult than what you're used to, but you've got to check out Blood of Zeus. It harkens back to some of the animes that we know and love. And that's something that I said about Castlevania. I think one thing the studio is doing is they're pulling from classic tropes that we've seen from anime, but applying it to Western animation and giving us grand epic battles and use of powers as we see as something like an Avatar. But it also harkens back to the classic cartoons that we grew up with, or at least I grew up with in the 90s. The animation almost feels like that, but also just the fun aspect of it. We see our hero take on all of these different creatures and demons and demigods throughout the episodes, and then we look at the characters that aren't our main character, someone like a Zeus, who is a complicated, obviously he's Zeus, so it's like, he's the all-powerful being, nothing's wrong with him, he's perfect, but he's not perfect. What did I say? I said the illegitimate son of Zeus. Well, you understand why Hera is so pissed off all throughout the show, because throughout the show, she's sitting back going, you know what? I have a right to be upset. I'm going to be upset. She is a great villain, not a good villain, a great villain. And all of these things that Heron has to take on, they're grand, and the use of powers as well, the way Zeus uses his powers, and all of these gods that come in and they don't sit on the sidelines. they come down from the heavens above and they kick some tail, and we get to see all of it play out on screen. So if you're asking me, Austin, is Blood of Zeus worth it? If A, I'm a huge fan of Greek mythology. If I'm not a huge fan of Greek mythology, I think this is a show for everyone, especially if you love anime and if you love the classic action-filled Saturday morning cartoons with this PG-13, oh heck, rated R edge. I think it's awesome. Like I said, you have demigods versus demons, you have gods versus demons, the Amazons come in. It's everything about this mythology, but it doesn't just rely on the mythology and that alone. It also creates its own story with its own characters, and I think the key there is getting us to root for, yeah, the main character, but getting us to feel for some of these side characters, and that's another thing that it does well. So many different things that this show took to heart. It took on the task of saying, you know what, we're going to give you the grand spectacle, and that's really important when you're dealing with Greek mythology. Again, the use of their powers is some of the coolest I've ever seen, but we're also going to give you somewhat of a character study. We're also going to give you characters that feel real. I mean, yes, it's an animated show, but it feels more real than a lot of shows that I've seen on Netflix, and it could have to do that it's the people behind Castlevania. That could have to do with how good the animation is, and it doesn't end when the actual narrative comes to a close at the end of every episode. We then get this kind of behind-the-scenes look during the credits where they're showing a bit of the process that goes into this. Heck, going back to the intro, I think the intro is amazing. Something that I've not even talked about yet is the music behind this show. It's not often that a score for an animated series is something that stands out as a massive highlight. It's not only a highlight here, it may just be the best daggone part of the show. The score is amazing. It stuck out within the first episode, and again, first 5 minutes, I wasn't feeling any of this. I'm like, I just don't know if I needed things to speed up a little bit. It takes its time in the first episode for a second, and then full-on Greek mythology, crazy Blood of Zeus, and I think that's what people are looking for. But listen, I need to know down below, were you a fan of Blood of Zeus? Were you a fan of Castlevania? And were you excited about this series? Also, which one is your favorite if you have seen the show? Again, sorry about the setting. It's not the one you're used to. You should see me back on set for my next video, but I appreciate the patience from you guys. I'm not opposed to bringing you a review when I'm out and about and doing separate business things. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you liked this style of video, be sure to drop it a thumbs up. As for my score for Blood of Zeus, listen, it handles so many things. From the use of flashbacks to these subplots to exploring one shot in particular where we get to see the entirety of the underworld come into play. So many things that I forgot about, but Netflix didn't want me to reveal major plot points. If you want to talk about those plot points, be sure to leave a spoiler tag. I've got to give you guys my score. It's an 82% for Blood of Zeus. A couple of things within the narrative that maybe I would have tweaked, and again, there were times where maybe that pacing slowed down and I'm like, okay, we could speed this up a little bit. It's not perfect, but what my score represents is a show that's an absolute blast, a show that does everything right. Jason O'Mara, the voice cast, I've not even talked about the voice cast. There's a lot to talk about with Blood of Zeus, but I appreciate you guys for tuning in to this review of sorts. So, are you checking this out on Netflix? Let me know down below. Again, I appreciate the patience. Stay tuned for more videos. Live stream is coming, and oh man, if you want an animated show to watch, Blood of Zeus is that show.